The wind cut across the plains in long, mournful breaths. It was a lonely place 2 days, ride from the nearest town, and 5 days from any settlement that had more than one street. Folks who ventured that way said Eli liked it that way. He wasn't a man of town halls or saloon chatter. He preferred the company of horses who didn't lie in soil that didn't judge, but the truth whispered only by the oldest hands. In the nearest camp was that Eli wasn't hiding from the world. The world was hiding from him. He'd bought the land cheap because no one else dared take it. Too many stories, too many strange signs on the ground, too many tales of a warrior's spirit wandering the ridge at dusk. But when Eli arrived, he knelt in the dirt. They said the wind stilled itself just to listen. That was the first clue he wasn't just another rancher with a stubborn streak. He lived quietly, rising before dawn, tending horses bred from a line older than any Western bloodline. Tall, strong creatures, with feathered hooves and storm-dark coats, descendants of the mounts, of his mother's people, the Anahuac clan, Cherokee warriors, known for quiet ferocity, known for moving like shadows, known for never forgetting a promise nor forgiving an insult carved deep. Even from a distance, the ranch had an aura. A mark, burned into the doorframe of Eli's cabin, caught the eye of anyone reckless enough to get close. A small, diamond-shaped symbol made of 4 interlocking lines. Most didn't understand it. Some feared it, but a rare few recognized it instantly and turned their horse around with a curse, refusing to ride a step closer. It was a clan marker, a warning, a vow. One hot, dust-thick afternoon, trouble finally came in the form the locals had long feared. 5 riders rough. The leader, Colton Briggs, carried a shotgun, and the kind of cruel grin carved by years of taking what wasn't his. His gang had been running wild through 3 counties, and word of a loner rancher with valuable stock had reached them like a spark on tinder. They arrived at the fence line, horses stumping, dust rising like steam from hell's gates. One of the outlaws spat onto the ground. "Looks dead enough. Bet nobody's home." Briggs snorted. "If he is, he ain't breathing long." They pushed open the gate and rode toward the cabin. Everything was still, too still, as if the land itself held its breath. Briggs dismounted first, boots crunching on dry dirt. He swaggered toward the cabin door, ready to kick it open. And then he saw it. The mark, small, dark, carved with painstaking precision into the old timber. The Cherokee diamond symbol representing the sacred for directions, the unity of the clan, and the bloodline of warriors who fought to the last man rather than retreat. Briggs froze mid-step. The others noticed his hesitation. "What is it, boss? Why'd you stop?" Briggs didn't speak. His eyes were locked on the symbol, his sweat suddenly cold. Of all the places to rob, they had stumbled into one protected by a clan whose stories were older than the frontier, itself stories of fighters who vanished into forests and reappeared behind enemies before a man could draw breath. One outlaw chuckled nervously. "It's just a drawing, boss." Briggs swallowed. Not a drawing, a sign. Before they could react, Eli stepped from behind the barn, silent as the dusk. His dark hair fell to his shoulders, bound with a leather tie. His eyes held the calm of a man not afraid to die but unwilling to let an inch of home be taken. "You crossed my land," Eli said, voice level and unhurried. Briggs tensed. "We're just looking for a place to water our horses." "Don't lie," Eli interrupted softly. "Men who lie step lighter. Yours stomp like thieves." There was no threat in his tone. That made the gang even more unsettled. Eli lowered the spear tip until it touched the earth. "You saw the mark. You should ride away." Briggs nodded slowly, swallowing hard. But pride was poison, and he had drunk too much of it in life. "Men like us don't turn tail from a scratch on a door." He spat. Eli's eyes narrowed not in anger, but in the quiet sadness of a man forced into violence he didn't seek. The plains wind shifted. The air grew heavy. The horses snorted uneasily. When Briggs raised his shotgun, everything happened at once too fast for men who lacked discipline. Eli moved, not like a man, like a shadow detached from the earth. A blast echoed, hitting nothing but sky. Eli drove the butt of the spear into Briggs's chest, sending him sprawling. The other outlaws scrambled, but fear made their hands clumsy. Eli didn't kill them. He didn't need to. One by one, he disarmed them with swift, precise movements, wrist locks, takedowns, sweeps that sent dust clouds swirling. The gang lay groaning on the ground, bruised, shocked, and humiliated. Eli stood over them and spoke not like a rancher, but like a protector of old blood. "You came here thinking I was alone," he said, "but every warrior of my bloodline stands with me. Their mark is my shield. Their memory is my weapon." Briggs crawled backward, fear replacing arrogance. We didn't know." "You did," Eli corrected. "You just didn't believe." He pointed toward the ridge. "Leave, and when the wind whispers this story, let it warn others. Not all homes out here are unguarded." The gang mounted their horses and fled without looking back. Eli watched them disappear, then turned to the mark on his door. He touched it gently, a tribute to the ancestors who walked with him. The land exhaled. Silence returned. But trouble, once stirred, rarely settled for long. And this time, the gang would come back with more than just 5 men. Night fell heavy over the plains, wrapping the ranch in a cloak of shadows and ghostly silver moonlight. Eli stood on the porch, hearing the land speak in the language of wind and rustling grass. The ancestors were restless. Something was coming. But not all who heard it were frightened off. Some were angered, ashamed, determined to reclaim their reputation by destroying the man who humiliated them. Colton Briggs nursed cracked ribs and a bruised ego at a saloon table in the nearest town. Men gathered around him, men just as mean, desperate, and reckless as he was, but far more numerous. "You telling me one man beat your whole crew?" One outlaw scoffed. Briggs glared. "Not a man, a ghost. A Cherokee devil." Laughter erupted, but Briggs slammed his fist on the table. "You didn't see how he moved. Like the ground belonged to him. Like the air helped him fight." Another outlaw leaned forward. "You bringing us out there just for a superstition?" "I'm bringing you because he made fools out of us," Briggs growled. "And because he's got horses worth more than gold." Greed was a strong motivator. The room went silent. Then, one by one, heads nodded. At dawn, he walked into the cabin, opened an old chest, and lifted a bundle wrapped in a hand-woven blanket. Inside lay the weapons of his mother's people, a pair of tomahawks, an obsidian dagger, and a carved wooden flute used in war ceremonies. He laid them carefully on the table. Then he reached for something else, a small pouch filled with red clay from the mountains of his clan's homeland. He pressed 2 fingers into it, then drew 3 long lines beneath each. The mark of a warrior preparing, not just for battle but for protection. He stepped onto the porch as the 20 riders crested the ridge, darkening the horizon. Colton Briggs rode at the front, shotgun slung across his back, hatred burning in his eyes. "Blackthorn," he roared, "come on out. This time, you're dying slow." Eli remained calm. "You should have stayed gone, Briggs." Briggs sneered. "And let you walk around with my pride? Not a chance." The gang dismounted, spreading across the front yard like wolves surrounding a lone elk. They carried rifles, pistols, knives, every tool of violence the frontier had birthed. Eli remained motionless. "You think that mark's gonna scare us again?" Briggs taunted. "Yes," Eli replied simply, "because you still don't know what it means." The wind shifted sharply, as if responding to his words. The grass stirred. The air grew thick. Briggs scoffed. "Enough tricks." He raised his hand. "Boys." A low, steady drumbeat. Not from any drum the outlaws could see. It came from everywhere, earth, sky, whined as if carried by spirits. Eli began to move. Not fast, not aggressive. He walked forward slowly, planting each step with ritual precision. The outlaws shifted uneasily. "What's he doing? Why's the ground vibrating?" "Boss, maybe we should." "Shut up." Briggs snapped. Eli raised the carved flute to his lips. A haunting melody pierced the air, ancient, echoing, filled with the voices of warriors long gone. The gang staggered as the sound washed over them. One outlaw dropped his gun. That's a prayer song," he whispered shakily. "My grandma used to tell stories." Eli finished the melody, then opened his eyes. For a moment, a brief for the mind to fully grasp. The outlaws saw shapes behind him, tall, shadowy figures of warriors with painted faces and spears, standing silent but fierce. Their outlines flickered like flame, yet held form like stone. Briggs's jaw quivered. What is that?" Eli spoke softly. My ancestors protect what I protect. You came to take what isn't yours. So now, you face all of us. The ground trembled. The wind howled. The horses panicked. And the outlaws broke. Some fired wildly. Others fled toward their mounts. Chaos exploded across the ranch yard, knocking men to the dirt with the blunt ends of his tomahawks. He never killed. He didn't need to. Every strike was precise, every movement disciplined, every action guided by teachings older than the frontier itself. The ones who stayed found themselves facing a warrior who fought with purpose, not rage. Briggs watched his men fall, panic surging through him. He turned to run, but Eli was suddenly there, standing in his path like a shadow made solid. You brought danger to my land, Eli said quietly. To my horses, to my ancestors. That was your last mistake. Briggs collapsed to his knees. Please, I didn't know. You knew enough, Eli replied. Tell your men. Tell every outlaw. Tell every greedy fool from here to the border. His voice deepened, strengthened by the spirits behind him. The Blackthorn Ranch is protected. Not by me alone, but by every warrior who carried this mark before I was born. The remaining outlaws fled into the plains, never daring to look back. When they were gone, the wind quieted. The shadows behind Eli faded like morning fog. The land exhaled once more. Eli wiped the clay from his face and placed his weapons back into the chest. He stood on the porch as dawn's first light washed over the ranch. Peace had returned. For now,